The incredible story of Anne Frank and her family is coming to Birmingham Village Players with their production of The Diary of Anne Frank. And today we're talking to two of the cast members, Josephine O'Reilly and Stella Fenton. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It is such a pleasure. We're so excited to talk about this show. This is such a important and timely show. And you're currently in about 2 weeks before the production, before you go for opening night.
Yes.
Josephine, how is that going so far?
I think that everything has been going great. Everyone's been getting down their lines, and I don't know, we have such a talented cast, and I think it's going to be amazing by showtime.
This is kind of crunch time, Stella, right? Right before, like, the last 2 weeks is kind of when everything starts to come together.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's honestly down to details at this point. So we're working during our rehearsal times, just nailing down those few moments that are going to be like extra special and emotional for the audience. And we're just taking the time to really solidify it in a way that's super presentable and easy to connect to for the audience.
Totally understandable. And this is kind of a story you want to make sure that you get correct and right, and it's so important. But for maybe those who aren't familiar with the story of Anne Frank, Josephine, what's kind of going on in the show, specifically this production of it?
Well, it is a play made about the book, The Diary of Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, and it's all about the stories and diary entries of Anne Frank from when her family went into hiding during the Holocaust, and it's all about how they held on to hope and how they were able to live together, and showing just how everything happened during the Holocaust from more of like a very personal perspective. And we get to see Anne, her sister Margot, and both of her parents, Edith and Otto Frank, living together with another family, the Van Dans, and they have a son, Peter, and they're also living with one more man, Mr. Dussel, but his real name is Hans Pfeffer, but she changed his name to Mr. Dussel in her diary.
Again, such an incredible story. So many interesting characters. So what really drew you to wanting to be a part of this play?
As a young Jewish woman, I grew up, discussing Anne Frank at the dinner table with my grandparents who have relatives who were in the Holocaust. So the story is very close to home. It's one I've been very familiar with since I was a child. We read the book in school. It's something that I've known for a while. And so when I saw it was coming to Birmingham Village Players, I was like, yes, I got to try out for this. Just because A, I'm interested in the story, and B, as a young Jewish woman, I think it's really important to represent my heritage and my culture. And getting to act along this like incredible cast has just made the experience so much more meaningful too.
And what a cool way to honor that heritage, to be a part of this story. Like one of the most important stories from our modern time. I'd still kind of modern, but this is one that is still so poignant, and like it's so cool to be a part of that.
Yes.
Josephine, how about for you? What drew you to wanting to audition for this play?
I remember seeing the audition notice, and I had definitely heard of Anne Frank and her diary. I knew that she's an important figure in history, and I thought this would be an amazing show for me to go out and audition for, because the story is just so important. And after I signed up, I started reading the diary, and I just got to know Anne, and I got to know her story, and it just made me like, okay, so I really want to be a part of this, because after reading about her, I just loved her so much as a person, and loving her and knowing how much of an important story this is to be telling, especially now. And I was just so happy to have the chance to be a part of it.
And you're actually playing Anne, which is so incredible to be able to play that role and to bring this to life.
Yeah.
What has kind of been your developmental process to bringing this character to life?
I've been really wanting to make sure that people can see all of the amazing things about her, because I know sometimes from people I've talked to, people get the wrong idea about her, thinking that she's hyper, she's bouncing off the walls, and she can't pay attention. But I just want to make sure that everyone can see how intelligent and smart and kind and caring and just full of life that she was. And Yeah, and I just really wanna make sure people can see that, and it's just important for me to tell the audience that, like, she was just such a good person.
Is there a weight to stepping into a role that's based on a real person such as Anne?
It's definitely changed the way that I have thought, um, how I have developed her throughout the show because in other, productions that I've done with, like, made up characters, I've been able to really, like, develop them and how I would have thought that they would have been and how I would interpret them, and I feel a lot of ownership over it. But of course, Anne is Anne, she's herself, and more of my process was thinking about making sure I'm doing exactly what she would have done, and it means, paying a lot more attention to the really tiny details of everything about her.
For sure, for sure. And Stella, you're playing Margot. So, while Anne's kind of people know Anne a little bit more, Margot is kind of, this character who is present, but you I hope that you get to play around with her a little bit more. But who is Margot to you? Like who is this person?
Well, Margot is Anne's older sister. She's intelligent, she's disciplined, she's composed, and she's definitely like the contrast to the outwardly emotional and expressive like Anne Frank that we see on stage.
Sure.
Um, she's really seen as this perfect child archetype. And over the show, we really start to see the weight that she carries as the older sister, the maturity that she has to adopt so quickly. Um, and I think that stepping into a role with like responsibility like that, just like embodying Margot Frank's responsibility while also embodying the responsibility of playing a real person and honoring their actual truth. Um, that whole theme of responsibility has been a really enriching like acting process for me and has allowed me to
Sure.
tap into a lot of new emotions that I'm excited to show people on stage.
Now, is it a different process for tapping into somebody who was real, somebody who was alive, such as like Margot, than comparative maybe to like a role that is, a fictional character?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in lots of other shows where it has been a fictional character, and I think I would say, similar to what Josephine was saying, when you adopt a character that is fictional, it's easy to have like your own liberty with it and have your own take on it, and your performance as that character is like singular to your performance and you as an
Sure.
actor. Um, but I think that honoring the emotions that someone else had felt, especially in a time as pivotal and like scary as this, it allows you to kind of refine your acting process a little more and be more patient with it. It's really easy to like jump at a fictional character and be like, here's what I'm going to do here. Let's make this choice. But every choice that I make with Margot, I really have to sit with myself and think, am I doing this because I feel like it's right? Or am I doing this because I think it honors her truth and like what she was feeling during this time?
So it's really about getting into the mindset of who this person is. And, based off what we know of them, it kind of who is
Yes.
Margot or who is Anne.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So, Josephine, what has been the most challenging part of playing a character such as Anne?
I think probably finding that in between of her really strong emotions and also finding like the reason behind her very strong emotions because you see it a lot in the show and in her diary. She is flopping from one thought to another, like, and she always has like big opinions on things, and she always tries to express it a lot. And I've just been doing my best trying to, like, make sure that I get more of, like, the reality and humanizing point of view of that is that what I've seen through the diary is that she's just not hyper. She feels like she's not being heard, and she wants people to, like, respect her ideas and opinions. And so she's going bigger, she's trying to get people to notice, and I wanna make sure that comes out in her character so people can understand, like, how human and how personal and just how real this story is.
It sounds like a really grounding approach to who Anne is. And still, how about for you? What has been the most challenging part to bringing Margot to life?
Like we discussed previously, I think there's a challenge in the silence of the role and not necessarily having a lot of scripted action that is like given by the original playwright for Margot to do. And I think that that silence is intentional, but it's definitely harder to work with because it leaves it up to you and it leaves it up to your analyzation of who this character was and how you feel like they should be represented. Um, and I find myself to be a pretty talkative and bubbly person outside of the stage. So sitting with the silence and the patience that Margot had is definitely a contrast to like how I behave in my everyday life. And slowing down has definitely been like the hardest part for me to apply to this role. But I feel like once you have that patience and once you truly do take that time to step back and allow like yourself to watch what's happening and let the emotions come from watching rather than doing, I think that's allowed me to reach like a very powerful acting performance with Margot.
That's so beautiful too, to think that like you have to really just kind of sit there with Margot,
Yeah.
you know, like there's not a lot of you have to find out who she really is. You have to just sit with who is she, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I have a stronger connection to her now in like understanding that responsibility and that silence that she had. She would have actually been 100, I'm pretty sure, this week. So that's a
That's
fun little
awesome.
tidbit to share.
What
But yeah,
like that's awesome to be able to take that in there too, to think about that. Again, it
yes,
makes it more
definitely.
real.
Definitely.
I think that plenty of times when it comes to stories, especially with stories that pass, sometimes people forget that like this is a real story. These are real people, you know, this is a real
Mhm.
experience. This isn't just an acting, you know. And so it's cool to have that moment to be like, oh yeah, this is a person who would have been 100, you know?
Yeah, it makes you connect to the story way more.
Josephine, do you feel like your understanding of Anne has changed throughout the rehearsal process?
I think definitely because as being on stage as her, being around all of the other actors and characters in the scenes has really made it more obvious to me the dynamic between her and everyone else because it's really hard to get that out of reading her diary because of course it's just her perspective and of course just reading the script all you can really hear is yourself, but being on stage with everyone else it feels so much more real, the just the anxiety of it all, like being so close together with people. And I think it's really made me change on how Anne's opinions of everyone. People think that she was just mad at everyone, but it was just really their close proximity. And yeah, maybe they got into disagreements every now and then, but so do families. It's not just because she was just an angry teenager. So I think
Sure.
that's probably what I've noticed so far.
That's a beautiful answer. Absolutely. So, Stella, how do you feel like this play explores hope despite being difficult circumstances?
I think that the beauty in this show is the character's adaptation, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Um, having having something so scarring and traumatic, like the Holocaust and being forced out of your home, and being forced to submit to a destructive power, um, can destroy anyone. And I think that the beauty in this show, and the aspect of hope in this show really comes from the adaptation of the Franks and the Von Dons being able to create normalcy in a time of panic and a time of fear. You'll notice in the show that like there's maintained house routines. You see them cleaning, you see them having meals, you see them using the bathroom, you see them reading, you see them doing common familial household activities. And that for me really grounds the show and allows you to sit with it and be like, wow, this was real and they were real people just going about their little habitual experiences that they did at home in this small annex. And it really makes it um that's what I think brings the hope to the show and brings, I don't know, light to the situation overall.
For sure. Josephine, how do you feel like this, like in your perspective, does this show explore that hope?
I think it shows a lot how most of the people in the annex always voice their opinions on their sorrows about everything going on, and even the thoughts in the back of their head on feeling like the war will never end. But then we always have these moments where I feel like everyone was holding on to this little bit of hope in their own way or another. Like a quote from Anne is, she says, in spite of everything, I think people are truly good at heart. It's because she was holding on to this hope that even though she was exposed to this much hate from people, that she still believes and she still has hope that everyone's truly good at heart. And everyone thought that the peace and the love and the hope would overcome the hate. And we can see in modern day experiences, it eventually did. And I think that's how important it was.
And I think that's why that this show still speaks to people, and why it still is so, it resonates with audiences and actors as well. Well, thank you so much for you both being here. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both, and we're so excited for this production to arrive.
Thank you so much. If I could add this in, we just the director wanted us to share with that on March 15th, during a Sunday matinee. After the show, there's going to be a talk back if anyone's interested. And we just wanted to throw that out there to let audiences know that they can stay after the show and hear from the cast.
Perfect. So The Diary of Anne Frank opens at Birmingham Village Players on March 6th with a really awesome talkback on March 15th that everybody should stay with and talk and learn a little bit more and explore this important story. But it runs through the 22nd, so get your tickets now. We'll see you at the show.